Oh, God. Oh, thank God there's still hotels on this side. A real bed, a real bathroom. Thank Christ. And you can just sit right there for a while. Oh, look, a bed. Oh, God, wonderful bed. The hell? Really? Even here, you can't just... Fine. Fine. At least I'm somewhere comfortable.
Oh, so now you localize investigations too. Thanks, Capcom. It's not like I was in the middle of writing a video on a game that I thought you were never going to bring over, so now I'm going to have to start all over again or anything. I mean, I'm grateful to have it, but... What was that?
Hey.
Con? Where the hell are we?
Long story, don't ask. Short version, we're doing a crossover. I'm assuming you got tapped by the spell.
A little bit, but I think I'm getting used to it.
Cool, I guess.
You know, I feel like I should make a joke about how we're finally doing a crossover, but it didn't happen until after we'd both ended our main shows.
Please don't. I'm very tired.
I get that. So what's the movie?
The one with the most awkward title structure since Scooby-Doo and Where's My Mummy? Straight out of nowhere, Scooby-Doo Meets Courage the Cowardly Dog was released on September 14th, 2021. It was written by Michael Ryan and directed by Cecilia Aronovich. And here's where I lose a lot of the audience. I have never been a fan of the cartoon era of Cartoon Network. I found most of the shows produced under the banner ugly, boring, unfunny, or some combination of the three. As such, seeing the ads for Courage the Cowardly Dog did not entice me to watch it. I caught the occasional episode when someone else was watching, but I never really paid any attention to it.
Which explains why I'm here, apparently. Courage was created by John R. Dilworth, who also worked on Big Bag, Cartoon Network's take on Sesame Street, as well as A Little Curious for HBO Family. Our hero is Courage, a pink dog who's afraid of everything, and lives in the middle of nowhere, as in nowhere, Kansas, with his adoptive family, the crotchety old Eustace, and his wife, the sweet, kindly Muriel. And also their snarky British computer, because every household needs one. The similarities to Scooby-Doo are pretty obvious, but unfortunately for Courage, the monsters that he encounters are not only real, but far more malevolent than the ones that usually show up in the Scooby franchise. And it's up to Courage to save his family while being scared out of his mind the entire time. Despite being a horror comedy like Scooby-Doo, Courage leaned far more into the paranormal or surreal elements. It's still a kid's show and it had negative continuity. Eustace died countless times but came back the next episode with no explanation. But that didn't stop it from having occasional recurring villains or being surprisingly dark at times. Sometimes it wasn't the monsters that were scary, but how real the situations could be. The Mask was a story about escaping an abusive relationship, and the last episode, Perfect, despite being more famous for that creepy CGI face that Courage sees in a dream, was really an episode about dealing with imposter syndrome and anxiety. Yeah, Courage could be surprisingly heartfelt at times. Some episodes weren't even about scary things like Last of the Star Makers or The Magic Tree of Nowhere. Well, unless you count the tree's creepy live-action lips. Regardless, eventually both shows were under the ownership of Warner Brothers, so a crossover between the two was on the table. It was originally pitched as an episode of Scooby-Doo and Guess Who? I can hear you groaning over there, Con.
Not yet, I haven't. Continue.
Well, the idea would turn into a full-on crossover movie. And eventually we got one without Dilworth's involvement, as by that time he'd moved on to other projects. In fact, originally, Maxwell Adams, who created Billy and Mandy, was approached to direct the movie, but he declined when he learned that Dilworth wasn't involved, so Michael Ryan had to step in. Sadly, this would not be the only member of the creative team not returning. The actors who played Eustace in the show, Lionel Wilson and Arthur Anderson, passed away in 2003 and 2016, respectively, so voice actor Jeff Bergman, who had voiced him previously in a 2016 commercial, stepped in to fill the role. This would also be the last performance of Thea White, the voice of Muriel, who passed away due to liver cancer in July 2021. Less than 2 months before the movie came out, which is why it was dedicated to her memory. Also, speaking of Michael Ryan, he actually has a pretty extensive resume. He wrote episodes of just about every cartoon, except, ironically, for Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Oh, that bodes well. The movie opens with...
Let's see who this bank-robbing clown really is.
You hitting the fast forward button, apparently.
We're in my head. There's no remote to fast forward with.
This spell is weird.
Anyway, the gang are wrapping up a case, and for some reason, Scooby and Shaggy want to get selfies with the evil clown they just captured.
I thought you guys were afraid of clowns.
And selfies.
Since when would you be surprised that Shag and Scoob are scared of anything, up to and including their own shadows? Actually, the boys are trying some self-help audiobooks to get over their perpetual fear of everything. Hope you like smartphone jokes, kids, cause this movie's got tons of them.
So we have the reveal, which, like every pre-credits reveal, isn't really important.
In fact, it's so unimportant, Velma starts turning into Charlie Brown's teacher.
Velma sounds like this because we're hearing her from Scooby's point of view. His hearing is being overwritten by a weird noise which is drowning everything else out, and also causes this to happen.
9 overloaded power conduits.
We're approaching bandwidth overload, sir.
You know, I hate to go here, but with all the selfie jokes they were just making, I'm surprised nobody asked why Scooby was twerking. That thought alone is more cursed than anything you'll see in this movie.
Why do my alleged friends keep saying things that make me want to tell them to get out?
Because you'd be doing the same thing to us if our positions were reversed.
Rhetorical.
I mean, there was that whole deranged Laguna paints murals with her own feces thing you inflicted on Miss Nightmare in that one Monster High video.
Rhetorical! Moving on!
Oh, alright. Scooby freaks out and runs off in search of the sound with the rest of the gang quickly following. And as funny as it is that they're leaving the bad guy in the mask unattended and he understands their situation, you're really not gonna make sure he gets arrested or something? See, now he's running off with the money. Great job, gang.
Fortunately, Velma put a tracking chip in Scooby's collar, which allows them to follow him.
That's oddly realistic for this franchise, but it works.
Ultimately, Scooby winds up in nowhere, where Courage is having the same reactions to the noise that Scooby is, much to the annoyance of Eustace.
Well, what do you think about this? Booga, booga, booga!
Okay, this gag I know. It kept cropping up in promos back in the day. Is the frequent animal abuse just a thing with this show?
Kinda. I said Eustace was a crotchety old man, especially compared to his wife, and this often translated to him messing with Courage by scaring him. Depending on the episode, this could border on actual abuse as opposed to stupid pet tricks. He's a pretty contentious character among fans of the show for this reason. Also, man, Courage does not look as good in this art style. Maybe it's the shading, but especially during the close-up shots, he just looks weird. Well, weirder than usual.
Courage runs outside and runs into Scooby. And of course they do this joke. Hilarious. Although I will admit the two dogs comparing notes on the noise is pretty cute.
I don't know, Courage feels a little less well-spoken than he could be in the show here. It's the same voice actor, Marty Grabstein, but I guess this is a side effect of not having anyone from the original show involved in the creative process. Oh no, it's a swarm of bushwicks! Sorry, I mean, Schwicks. If you've watched the show, you'll know.
And I do not. And also do not care to, so let's go to the credits.
I'm not crazy about the song, but I kinda like the Sideshow tent theme. It kinda reminds me of that one Cartoon Network groovies that They Might Be Giants did for the network. And it features a lot of cameos from villains from both shows. Overall, I like this sequence.
Me too, and I actually think the song's pretty catchy. When we come back from the credits, the dogs are saved by the rest of the gang showing up.
And props to Daphne for bringing a weapon. Sure, it's just a croquet mallet, but nice foresight. And nice follow-through.
Velma reveals that the bugs are giant cicadas which don't normally get that big, which naturally grabs her attention.
And there's some kind of green slime.
Don't even think about...
Too late!
Green slime! Green slime!
Moving on. Scooby introduces Courage to the gang and explains what happened, and then Muriel comes out on the porch, and she's thrilled Courage has new friends.
Why don't you invite all your new friends inside? I'm making my special Scottish dream cookies with extra butter.
Okay, I call foul. Everything Muriel made in the show had extra vinegar in it, not butter. You know how your grandmother had those home remedies and would use them on everything? Basically that. She cooked with vinegar, she made laundry detergent with it, it was her whole thing. At least they remembered she's Scottish.
The gang come inside and are introduced to Eustace, which goes about as well as you expect, before going into the kitchen for cookies and plumbing.
Okay, it's not perfect, but I honestly love how wholesome it is that Courage has a friend now, let alone one that's so like him. He didn't exactly have friends in the show, and considering that he lost his parents as a kid thanks to a science experiment, which is when Muriel found him, it's really no wonder he never left this family, despite Eustace being a dick. Also, it looks like Muriel's got herself a tribble infestation. Like, don't mind us, man, we're just trying not to get Vord over here!
After the giant hairball is dealt with, Courage notices something behind Shaggy which freaks him right the hell out. And with good reason, because one of the cicadas has apparently been hitching a ride on Shaggy's back.
Okay, I know it's a cartoon, but how do you not notice a bug that size crawling up your back?
Why does my back feel so heavy?
Also, wow, first time we've seen Courage use a wild take in this movie. Yeah, if you've seen the show, Courage can sort of talk. He's not as articulate as Scooby, or he tends not to be around humans. I guess he tends to babble when he's scared, so usually when he's trying to explain something, he reenacts what he's trying to say, often completely transforming his body in the process like he's some kind of little pink shapeshifter.
Oh, there's something wrong here! Or my name is Jose Santos de Guatemala! And it's not.
As for the bug...
Okay, credit where it's due, Muriel's a badass.
And that's not even the most badass thing she's ever done, but it's up there. Anyway, Shaggy and Scooby share their self-help book with Courage, and it has to be said, I love these three bonding so much, and it makes complete sense for the three most scaredy individuals in both groups to be best friends. Also, yes, Courage is turning into monsters from the show here. They even included that one gangster banana. Yes, I just said that.
The bonding is interrupted by a knock at the door, but when Daphne goes to answer it, there's nobody there. But there is an envelope.
You are all cordially invited to have dinner this evening at the mayor's mansion. Pets welcome.
The mayor of nowhere? We have a mayor? Oh, how lovely.
Yes, you do. He appeared in Curtain of Cruelty and a few other episodes. But like I said, negative continuity, so it doesn't bother me. Also, this is a great line.
But free food is free food. I can't believe I'm agreeing with the angry old dude, but I am.
Eustace refuses to ride in the Mystery Machine, so Muriel does instead, while Scooby and Courage go with Eustace. In the van, Muriel poses another riddle, and Velma, again, can't figure it out.
I'm not sure what they're trying to do with this running gag where Velma doesn't get Muriel's riddles. Maybe it's because she thinks too logically and scientifically and has trouble thinking in more abstract terms. Either way, it's not really funny. But that doesn't really matter right now because the cicada monster we saw before the credits started steals the truck with the dogs inside, which quickly catches up to the mystery machine.
There's a horrible, ugly monster driving that truck.
Caution, Eustace, dear.
I love how she doesn't even try to deny it.
She's nice, not blind. Anyway, this triggers the chase as the cicada monster tries to take out the rest of the gang in a variety of ways.
My decals!
I was not expecting vehicular combat in my Scooby-Doo movie, but here we are. Also, I'm guessing my decals is going to be an Idiot Fred moment.
You'd be right. Thanks to a collapsing bridge, the gang get left behind, but Daphne apparently installed nitro boosters in the van while Fred was doing the decals.
Which is awesome.
Granted, but we need to push on. So, using said boosters to clear the gap, the rest of the gang catch up to the truck. After a few more high-speed shenanigans and a literal cliffhanger, the cicada monster flies off, and everyone regroups.
What did you do to my truck?
Your truck might be okay. It might still be okay.
Eustace, where did you even go? Like, the bug appeared when you were about to get into the truck, and now you suddenly reappear after it leaves. Is Eustace the red herring of this movie? Anyway, the gang arrive at the mayor's creepy mansion, which makes no sense now that I think of it, because the mayor in the show was just a normal guy. Although, on second thought, we never actually saw his house, so I guess this is possible.
The butler shows them into a sitting room, and Eustace decides to be a jerk again.
Oh, come on. Normally in the show, if Eustace scared Courage right in front of Muriel, she'd reprimand him in some way, like smacking him with a rolling pin. We all want to see that. Also, even more villains from the show, and the magic tree, are in the pictures on the walls. Anyway, in typical Courage fashion, the chairs come to life and try to eat everyone. Quick, consult the self-help book.
Well, I'm afraid there is nothing I can do to help you.
Okay, that's a good gag. The mayor, who looks nothing like he does in the show, turns up and leads the gang to safety. But while the invitation is authentic, the mayor doesn't remember sending it.
Well, I simply don't remember voting for you, so I guess we're even.
I could make a political joke here, but I won't.
Thank you. At dinner, the mayor pretty much disregards the gang's worries about everything that's happened so far, saying nowhere is just like that, which, of course, sets Velma off.
Per capita, more weird and creepy mysterious stuff happens in Nowhere than anywhere else in the world.
Oh no. They're gonna have Velma explain Nowhere's weirdness, aren't they? Damn it, this is why I was glad I didn't get tapped for Curse of the 13th Ghost or Return to Zombie Island.
Relax. Aside from some residual weirdness in The Sword and the Scoob because of the shuffling of the release schedule, Velma's not as obnoxiously smug as she used to be. The mayor says he doesn't have any answers for them, but the mansion does have a museum wing they can check out, which is the cue for split-up time. Muriel goes with Fred, Velma, and Daphne to the museum, while Shaggy, Scooby, Eustace, and Courage stay to eat. Doesn't really work out for them, though.
Eustace, you don't have teeth. The mayor takes everyone else to the museum wing and promptly disappears. And yes, all the museum exhibits are references to past Courage episodes. Except for the whale. There was a whale in one episode, but it was a sand whale, not a blue whale. Meanwhile, Courage, Eustace, and the boys find the kitchen, which gives Shaggy and Scooby a chance to show off their sandwich-making skills.
Needs more mustard. Excuse me.
Ugh, again with this.
I'm having flashbacks to the live-action Scooby-Doo movies.
Nice try. You're grounded for 2 weeks.
Worth it.
Worth it. Totally worth it.
Eustace, after being scared by the butler and his wife, takes off, leaving the boys to find more stuff for the sandwich. That also does not work out for them. Back in the museum, Daphne finds a set of footprints and some collected dust, and Velma discovers that several of the books containing the land surveys of Nowhere County are missing. Muriel starts dusting and turns on a TV that's on display, which starts playing a promotional video for Nowhere.
So, you've decided to visit the town of Nowhere. for you.
This newscaster guy was a character in the show, and he'd narrate the opening every time too. He also mentions Katz and LaQuack, who were two of the few recurring villains I mentioned, and they have statues next to the TV. Back with the boys, the Cicada Queen, as I guess we're calling her now, abducts the mayor and seemingly turns him into one of the giant cicadas. Another chase breaks out, which leads to another round of Shaggy and Scooby, and Courage, put on costumes and annoy the monster.
Oh man, like don't tell me it's your first day on the job. Guess we'll have to show you the ropes.
This, right here, is one of the top 10 executions of this gag. I laughed my ass off at this.
Oh, is that what I just kicked down here?
This, right here, is also why I can't have nice things.
But the distraction doesn't last long when the Cicada Queen sees the boys trying to sneak off in the mirror. The boys run for it and wind up in the museum where Fred accidentally hits the statue of Katz with his elbow, triggering a secret passage. The chase starts up again with the boys, who wind up being pursued by an entire swarm of CGI cicadas. And much like the cicadas, that CGI is crunchy.
Meanwhile, Fred, Velma, Daphne, and Muriel find themselves in a cavern where they also find a clutched-together bunch of outdated electronics which are broadcasting the sound the dogs keep hearing to cell phone towers across the country and seems to be having a strange effect on anyone who answers the call.
If this is about the tiny car rental, I already...
Okay, props. I was not expecting to see the clown guy again.
I'll show you how to slow down.
Back at the house, the boys do the classic doors and hallways gag, although the bit with the baby bug at the end is a nice twist on it. Anyway, they fall down one of the holes in the floor the swarm made, which just so happens to be right above where the rest of the gang are, and they crash into the electronics, killing the signal. How convenient!
The crash causes a partial cave-in, which blocks off the secret passage, and after that, things start getting weird as the water in the cave begins to trickle up toward the ceiling, and the rest of the gang is floating. Velma says she needs to do more research, but needs a more reliable internet connection than the signal on her tablet. Muriel says they have a computer back at the farmhouse that she can use, and they follow a tunnel hoping it will lead them back outside.
And speaking of the farmhouse, Eustace apparently went back home to make his own sandwich. But while he does, one of the people we saw getting affected by the cell phone calls brings him a couple of suitcases full of jewelry, followed by just about everyone else we saw bringing even more valuables to him. As for the rest of the gang, they come out of the tunnel on the other side of the cornfield near Eustace and Muriel's house. Watch out for he who walks behind the rows, guys.
After Muriel proves to be a master at the usual negotiations, we...
Okay, I did not see the Eustace rap song coming. I know the movie's called Straight Outta Nowhere, but still, honestly the worst part is him not wearing a shirt. We didn't need to see that.
No one needed to see that. Back in the cornfield, the Cicada Queen chases the gang for a while until they come across a bunch of molted shells from the smaller ones. Velma theorizes they've moved out of the chrysalis stage and now have wings. And right on cue, the swarm shows up, managing to grab Muriel, Fred, Daphne, and Velma, who drops her tablet so the boys can continue the investigation. And then we get hit with the moral of the movie.
I know it's rarely like me to be brave. Okay, I will be afraid. It's just who I am. But I will have courage in the face of fear.
I know Shaggy's had an enough's enough moment like this in several movies by now, but it's still pretty cool to see.
I will draw the line here, and I will stand and fight.
Well, shit. So Scooby and Courage take the tablet back to the farmhouse, get surprised by Eustace with all the money, and consult Courage's computer.
What did Velma mean when she said, dig? Dig for the sauce?
Why does the computer sound like James Mason?
Why not? Also, I kinda saw the whole computer flirting with Velma's tablet coming, but they didn't make it too creepy. And I like that the computer thanked them both at the end. That's uncharacteristically sweet for him, but I appreciated it.
As for what may be going on, the farmhouse is on top of a giant impact crater where the meteor that might have wiped out the dinosaurs hit. Velma wanted the boys to dig for the meteor, but as always, there's a catch.
But beware, the meteor is composed of dark matter, a notoriously unstable substance.
So the dogs dig for the meteor and find that they're on the right track when the noise starts affecting them much stronger the further they go. Finally, they come out in a cavern where the meteor is sitting on some kind of machine and randomly shifting the gravity. But they don't get much time to look because the cicadas show up. The dogs grab the meteor and that starts up the climactic chase scene.
If you're in a situation and you can't find an
I have to admit, I like the song that plays during the chase sequence. Also, I realized something. Scooby himself doesn't usually get to save the day. Or if he does, it usually ends up being accidental, like Scoob and Shag run into the villain while trying to get away, or get him into Fred's trap. I know in the more recent movies they're trying to subvert this, but here we have a crossover between Scooby-Doo and Courage, in which the title characters are actively responsible for saving the day. On purpose. Granted, they did so with Velma figuring out things first, but Velma does that anyway.
It is a point in the movie's favor, and the two characters really do play off each other nicely, with Scooby kind of taking on a big brother role with Courage. It's a fun dynamic which helps bring in people who might not be all that familiar with Courage's own show. But back to the events at hand. Scooby finds Velma's glasses, and Velma herself.
Okay, I know they're not dead, but showing the Mystery Inc. gang's body suspended by threads and dancing around like corpse puppets is pretty messed up. Although it's even more messed up that this isn't even the first time Courage has done something like that.
It's effective, though. After freeing the gang and Muriel, a game of keep-away ensues with the powers of the meteor causing random complications in the process. Don't think we didn't hear those Mario sound effects you tried to drown out with the song, movie. No, seriously, back this video up and listen closely.
Thought we wouldn't notice, but we did.
The chase comes to an end when the gang head out through a tunnel with the swarm close behind. While another cave-in cuts off most of the swarm, the Cicada Queen manages to grab Muriel, who drops the meteor. Courage grabs it and gets outside, managing to save Muriel again, but the Queen gets the meteor and grows to giant size. And then the best thing in the movie happens. Kaiju Courage! Fuck yes!
I can't look. Gotta hurt.
Well, no one ever said Courage was a fighter. Also, I'm pretty sure that bit with the bug breathing atomic breath into the air was a Godzilla reference.
It was. You even hear Godzilla's roar mixed in with the sound effects. So after a prolonged sequence with Courage trying to keep the meteor from the Cicada Queen, he starts spinning it, which shrinks the Queen and traps her under a bunch of girders, as well as freeing the gang and undoing all the damage caused.
He must have found the solve everything switch.
Which leads to the reveal.
I'm afraid we're dealing with something even more sinister and untrustworthy than a politician, if there is such a thing.
Velma's spitting facts there, but this isn't the actual reveal. This is.
And they are... It's cats and look quack. Remember? From the museum display? Oh, right.
I'm with the gang here. This is a complete ass pull. These two weren't anywhere in the movie aside as an offhand comment, and if you aren't familiar with Courage as a series, you'd have no idea who they are or why you should care.
Yeah, this reveal is honestly a bit disappointing. Don't get me wrong, it makes sense that these two would want to exploit some kind of MacGuffin, and it's nice to hear their voices, but come on. This is a show that gave us evil sirens, gangster bananas, windmill Viking ghosts, and even made a guy who just liked to cut hair supremely creepy. It's all in the presentation, and I find the presentation here a bit lacking, especially because most of the villains we saw previously were bugs. Also, there's the fact that they basically say the dark matter meteor was responsible for all of the weirdness in Nowhere, which, no. I could buy that it was responsible for some of it, but given all the weird crap that happens in Nowhere, there's got to be more than one explanation. Or, here's an idea, don't explain it. It's more fun that way.
As for motive, well, we saw it already. Use the meteor to hypnotize people and get them to bring money and other valuables to the farmhouse. Oh, and in case you're wondering where the authorities are...
That's better. The costume was a bit steamy.
This reeks of another inside joke for Courage fans. Eli?
Yeah, the general and the lieutenant are recurring characters, and honestly, the idea that they've been impersonating the mayor's butler and chef is actually a pretty funny twist. Less so is this.
I don't understand. What is happening?
This rubber mask is really stuck on there. Oh, it's so realistic.
Okay.
And here I was worried they weren't even going to acknowledge the talking cat and duck. At least they turned it into a gag.
And so this pretty much ends with a dance party.
I actually did think the meteor looked like a disco light, but Courage actually using it as one is pretty genius, even though he's basically forcing a dance party ending.
Oh, and if, like Fred and Daphne, you're wondering where Eustace is...
Out of nowhere. Out of nowhere.
Thank God that towel is super tight.
Well, that pretty much wraps it up. I defer to the expert first, as usual.
From the perspective of a Courage fan, this movie is alright. It doesn't really do anything innovative with the characters, and you can tell that John Dilworth wasn't involved because there's just something missing in the writing. It pays tribute to some of the past villains without really using them effectively. Katz and LeQuack barely have 10 minutes of screen time. I do like that Courage was integral to saving the day in the end, though, and him becoming friends with Scooby and Shaggy was super wholesome. That's the thing I would say makes seeing this movie worthwhile. I don't like that they tried to explain nowhere, which kinda goes against the point of the series, but it still wasn't as infuriating as some of the retcons the other later Scooby-Doo movies tried to throw in. If you are a Courage fan, it would be a better use of your time to watch the series instead. But if you're in the mood for a crossover movie with these two franchises specifically, well, you could do a lot worse.
I'm a little less enthusiastic about this movie. In terms of a crossover, it's weighted too heavily on the Courage side of things, especially the reveal. If you aren't a Courage fan and this is your first exposure to the show, you're just going to be confused. The styles of humor don't really mesh, and it definitely runs into problems when the movie tries to have it both ways with the weirdness and monsters of Courage's setting, running headlong into the current always a creep in a mask or other explanation mandate of Scooby-Doo. Not only that, while the movie doesn't drag or bore, when you go back and look at it again, you realize a good chunk of this movie is just everybody running from the monsters in one way or another. Nothing necessarily wrong with it, but it does mean that the story is pretty minimal. That said, the gags are pretty funny, and as I mentioned before, even if mashing the two settings together doesn't work, the actual pairing of Scooby and Courage is the best part of the movie. Like I said, I never really bothered watching Courage the Cowardly Dog, so this was pretty much my first real introduction to the character, and he's very likable, as is Muriel. Eustace, I can take or leave. Did it make me want to check out Courage's series? Not really, but the movie is still pretty fun and entertaining, even if it doesn't completely work. Check it out sometime. And with that, we log off with another of the 30-plus films of Scooby-Doo.
Courage, Scooby-Doo! Well, good night, folks. Bye!
Well, that was a trip.
Sure was.
Hey, speaking of crossovers, you know, I've wanted to do one with you for some time, and I guess I got my wish. But how do I get out of here?
Oh, I'm sure that will take care of itself.
My head. Well, Miss Nightmare told me something like this might happen, but I didn't think I'd end up tagging along. Better message her about it. And while I'm at it, I might as well tell Zen to start playing Professor Layton if we're still doing that crossover.
Okay. We're making progress. We're making progress. That's out of the way. All right, great, wonderful.